For people who are joining this live stream, we are talking about incremental language development for Wolfram Language, and we have a variety of topics today. Let's start off with downscale, xscale. Okay, well, this is the concept, at least. It's a downsampling that leaves the positions unchanged, right?
Yes.
Do we have Brett here? Or is who's the relevant person for this?
I'm here, Shadi.
Okay, but we also have I think we need Brett here because this is also relates to the max plot points business, right?
Yeah, I can try to grab him.
Okay. So right now, downsample. Okay. That's what it's doing.
And we should keep in mind that it works for n-dimensional arrays. If we wanted to return positions, we probably need a level specification.
Yeah, but also I don't know what it means in 2D. Well, it means something in 2D as well. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah. Oh, you would just get 2D positions. If you wanted to be returning positions at that second level. But that's what I'm saying. I guess if we wanted to, if we want a function that returns positions, we need a level spec as well.
I understand that, but I mean, what I'm saying is that if you have something like this, you know, that's the case that I think we reasonably can ask it to generate. I mean, you know, so if I say downsample on this, what the heck did it do?
It tries to downsample in both dimensions. If you wanted to just downsample in the first dimension, that's going to be 5,1. So no downsampling.
I don't see a comma 1.
That's in the details.
It shouldn't just be in the details. It shouldn't just be in the details, okay? I mean, that's a structural thing, and it should be up there. But anyway, okay, we won't worry about that. But you should move it up to the top, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, that does what I want, doesn't it?
Yep.
So that's a perfectly good answer. If we had documented that, which we should, probably even as a basic example, because it's a useful thing, and we put this into the up here,
mm-hmm.
I think we are.
We're covered.
I think we're in good shape there. I mean, I think that it's certainly heuristically. I'm not quite sure why it's downsampling. If I say 5, why is it cutting out? I see it's by a factor of 5. So when we downsample a list of length 2 by a factor of 5, it ends up with a list of length 1.
Right.
So then the question here is having or not the positions initially.
Indeed. I mean, I could imagine, I mean, to me, maybe this one without positions, we should just put in the function repository for the time being. I mean, that's one that basically, the way that it would work, I mean, one way to make that work is as a sparse array, for example. Right? In other words, well, let me see what happens if I were to say this. Okay, so if I say sparse array, range of 100. And now I say downsample that by a factor of 5. Okay, I think that's wrong, what that just did.
No, I think that's right.
Okay, but let's see what's inside it. I mean, what that should be saying is, I see, the problem is, what we want to do is to get out something which has the original positions in it, right?
Right. And I think this has come up recently in discussions with Jose and other people of, how do I carry around a matrix and some idea of what the domain is?
Correct. This happens,
Right.
for example,
So another example of this is, say, geo-elevation data,
Mm-hmm.
where you get the matrix of elevations,
Yes.
but you don't know what the geo scales are.
Mm-hmm. It's like quantity. I mean, it's the analog of quantity for a list, sort of.
Mm-hmm.
Or, it's the analog of the data range option for various functions.
Exactly.
So, I mean, the geo-elevation array could maintain a data range.
well, there are two possible options here. One is to return a geoposition, which is a possibility now, in which each value of elevation has its own lat1. The other one would be what was suggested, I think, by Jason recently, to have a new wrapper that says this object corresponds to this range. And this could be used in arrays, potentially in images and things like that.
Oh, boy. I mean, that would have to be supported in a million places.
Exactly, yeah.
I don't really like that very much. I mean, to me, a better way to handle that would be something like with an association or something, is to have more functions like this. I mean, like what is listplot now doing with associations? If I say,
In some cases, it's labels, and I think if you give it number to number, it's XY.
okay, that's pretty nice. Is that a default? So if that second thing there was, if I had put a string there, are you doing something different? That's a pretty weird heuristic behavior.
I think it's string keys.
Okay. Is that fully documented, that behavior, by the way?
I believe so.
Okay.
But these two cases are special. So if you use I squared to I squared in both cases, what do you get?
What do you mean? Oh, you mean?
Yes, because no, if you change in those two inputs, the first I to something else, I squared.
Here?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna give this. It's going to just place them at it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be a parabola because it's placing them.
Right, but in the first one, I think it will be a parabola, right? Sorry, a straight line. In the other one,
I think so.
Exactly.
Right.
I hope you've documented that.
Look at the docs for list plot. Notes. So that second table there.
All right. I admit it. That's documented. Yep, I admit that. That's documented.
So
Okay. All right. So then what that's telling me is that if we had an association downsample or something that returned an association rather than these pairs. See what I'm saying? A sparse downsample.
Perhaps what we need is a function that does this first step of add positions to everything. Not as rules, but as, I mean, if you have a number, it will be the least position comma number, and then that can be fed to other functions.
Well, that's possible. Yes. I mean, in other words, that will be a function. I see, that fully qualifies a. I mean, it somehow reminds me a little bit of coordinate bounds and things like this, which do something the other way around. That goes from coordinate bounds, from a data range. I like that idea. I think it's a good idea. And there are a variety of different formats that it could put things in, so to speak. Right. I mean, it's essentially a map indexed. It's the kind of thing one wants to do all the time with map indexed, where.
You're right. Yeah, it's a version of map indexed. Yeah.
What one's basically doing is saying, yeah, it's a combination of map indexed and the rather unused subdivide function.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's not position in the structural sense. It's you give a range, and then you have to kind of spread things in that range.
Right. Right. So So I'm saying, given. Yes, exactly. Given some data and you're told its range, which could be geo ranges or could be a bunch of other range, could be whatever ranges coordinate bounds can give, right? Then what it does is it fully qualifies the data with a left-hand side, which corresponds to the location in the range, so to speak. This is a good idea. This is something that will be useful because this way we could pre-process, because essentially what it's doing is it's removing the quick elision that we're able to do in the case of list plot, which then gets things confused. Right. By the way, there's a question on the live stream from Ethan. Does downsample handle missings intelligently? What's the answer?
I think it just returns missings if missing is there.
That's probably not the best thing, as Ethan is pointing out. One could tweak things. In other words, if in the bucket of 5 things where it's supposed to decimate, so to speak, I mean, I don't know. I think the word decimate is the wrong way around. But anyway, you understand what I mean. That decimate, in decimate, you will be chopping out all but let's say, okay, it's like a partition where you're chopping out everything but every 5th element, right? That's what downsample is doing, right? But what one could do is let's say that every 5th element was a missing, then you would be losing completely, even though every other element is there. It's just the ones that you focused on in your sampling are all absent. Making sense? So that would be a case where it would be nice if the downsampler noticed that there were lots of missings and said, well, let me tweak that a bit and show you the thing next to the missing.
Well, I'm not sure.
Or interpolates.
Yeah, I was gonna say, probably we want something that interpolates all of the missing values first. And I think downsample should do what it's doing now.
Yeah,
on
fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, do we have an interpolate missing? Do we have that mechanism? We have a missing, we have something, a machine learning function that is the what is it called? Oh my gosh. It was the thing that was used to be called impute missing.
And synthesize missing values?
That's right. Right. Which would do that. So, okay, another point then for documentation that we should have synthesized missing values shown in connection with downsample.
Okay.
Okay, but so this, we're talking about a function here that, so Carl is asking, is array resample relevant? Let me see. That would be,
I mentioned in my email as well, whatever we decide to do with downsample, upsample, and array resample should follow perhaps. Well, upsample is just the same for, whatever.
you might want to go on mute if you're not, we can hear you. Okay, in any case. Okay, what is dspec? According to the dimension specification, dspec. Okay, so this is related but not quite the same because we're not resampling. We are merely putting in locations, basically.
No, this one is actually resampling. The other one is just dropping elements, or upsample is adding zeros.
No, I understand.
Resample is properly
I understand.
interpolating and resampling.
Okay, but what we're talking about here is the phrase label values is wrong, but I mean, it depends what we want it to return. If we wanted it to return an association, which I'm not sure is right most of the time, unless we decide that's what we're going to do for clarity. Okay, let's imagine that we were going to return associations. I mean, what's that?
This new function should have probably a third argument that allows you to specify whether you want an association, a pair position,
right.
comma value, or a flattened version of that.
You're right. You're right. So this, okay, so the function xxx, whatever it is, takes data, it takes bounds info, and it takes a shape specifier.
Right. And the bounds can be dates, can be quantities, your position.
Right, but what it does, it takes bounds in the same way that coordinate bounds takes bounds, right?
Well, we will have always the same question. Is that or it's transpose?
Yeah,
bounds
I know.
Or bounding box?
I know. Well, let's see. The one-dimensional case is obvious, yes?
Yep.
So a possible name here, this is crazy, but not. See, we could even have a pair. Set coordinate bounds. I mean, what it really is gosh, what is it? It's something that is, I mean, coordinate is not the most terrible word because that's what it is doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's putting in.
I think this is like add coordinates. Add coordinates from bounds.
Well, right.
Maybe prepend coordinate?
Not necessarily prepending because of the
No?
shape spec.
Okay.
I have a question. Does coordinate bounds, if I give it a what is it called? A date? How do I make a table of dates? Dates.
Date range.
Oh yeah, right. What? What went wrong there? What version am I running? Ah, I'm in my problem.
Yeah, that error indicates it was having trouble loading one of the packlets. But...
Okay, so you might want to look at that. That's 12.1 SU.
Will do.
Are you here to talk about the caching questions? Okay, so there's the date range. Okay, so now if I say coordinate bounds of that, oh come on, what did it just do? That's garbage. But with geopositions, it would work, right? And it should work with dates too.
Well, coordinate bounds is numeric. Now that I'm thinking, we have geo bounds and we have date bounds.
Oh,
We have date bounds?
Yeah, date bounds will give, and we're working on adding min date and max date.
then we should also have min-max date. Oh, but that is date bounds.
Yeah, that's basically date bounds.
When did we introduce date bounds?
Version 10? Maybe 10.2?
You know, I was amazed. I was looking at something. You were wrong.
Oh, 11.
Version 11.
Okay, wow.
I was looking at something recently. Get this for something just happened to me yesterday. I was using some notebooks from 2005, and I discovered that they had 2006. Sorry, they had bad syntax in them. The box structures were incorrectly formed. So it's like, how could this be? Did we make something incompatible? Turns out they were pre-release version 6 notebooks that were in a buggy version that were produced with a buggy pre-release version of version 6. So anyway, I don't know what that means, but so what? Anyway. Okay, so it's a little weird that we have the separate date bounds.
Well,
What does min-max work on dates? Yes, it does.
yeah, I mean, part of the reason for having it for date bounds is that not all dates are date objects. We could conceivably have coordinate bounds of a list of dates basically give us date bounds, but it wouldn't work if they were date lists or absolute times or date strings. Where within date bounds, we explicitly know we're handling things temporally.
Fine.
But it'd probably be good to have a C also between them.
Right. The same thing happens with geobounds that knows polygons and geodisks, etc.
Right. Well, anyway, so look, I think supporting coordinate bounds for ranges of dates seems useful, although we have then 3 separate ways to get the same answer, but that's okay. All right, but so here, I mean, this is basically a spraying coordinates type of activity. You're spraying coordinates on things. You're attached coordinates. That's rather silly, but
And personally, I still think this can be done, as a structured array type thing, where you're just storing a piece of information like quantity array does.
We don't want to do that. We want to actually spray it in so that we can use it in every other function that works with that, rather than having some weird extra new object that we have to support in thousands of places, and it's very confusing.
Well, but Brett's idea is not bad because structured array is already supported. So
okay, but I still think this is useful.
I mean, yes, it is useful, but I don't know that you necessarily want to have to blow out the bounds just to have that piece of information.
Well, what I think we should do is allow a shape spec, which is one of these structured forms. And so you choose what you want.
That's possible, but I mean, yes, that would be a way to do it. Okay, so let me just start making a note of this. Where am I going with this?
We have that functional programming folder now.
Oh, this is terribly functional, but I suppose we can put it here.
Sure.
Okay. Attach coordinates, I'm going to call it, but that won't be what it will finally be called. Okay, so what we're saying here okay, so the simple version of attach coordinates would just go, 1, 4, 9, and that would turn into 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9, correct?
Right.
And then on the other hand, if I said attach coordinates this 0 to 50, then what I would get out is subdivide 053.
2 steps.
What?
It's 2 steps, not 3 bonds.
What are you saying? Oh,
We count the number of steps.
I see. Okay, fine. So it's the transpose of that and the original data.
Right. And here is where sometimes we will need the flat thing, or sometimes we will need the coordinate wrapped in lists.
Right, so the other possibilities would be attach coordinates of the data, the shape, and then it could be association. I don't know whether it's in quotes or not. We have to think about that. Association of flattened array or flattened and list or array,
Pair,
which probably means the same thing. What's that?
pair, perhaps.
What does pair do?
Coordinate, comma, value. So position, comma, value.
But that's what we have here. Oh, that's what.
Yes, but imagine a deeper case in which instead of 0, we have the lists 1, 2, 3. I think
I see.
Interpolation takes this step.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Look, this needs further development, but I think, look, can you, I mean, attach coordinates, it's a little bit of a weird name. I'm not that keen on it.
Yeah, I can construct this.
Okay. With coordinates? Doesn't sound right because that sounds like they're already there. And prepend coordinates seems, well, I mean, let's at least write that down. Prepend coordinates. Insert coordinates, map coordinates. Actually, map coordinates is not totally hopeless.
Well, map would be expecting a function.
That's true.
What about add coordinates?
I don't like that because of addition.
I see.
Join coordinates. Okay, this is I mean, coordinatify is what we're really talking about.
Right.
I was going to say coordinated.
Ugh. This is a nice function. This will be very useful, particularly if we can give it a name that doesn't make it, I mean, just taking it on some data, this is a trivial case of map index that I do all the time. And maybe we should name it for that simple case. Oh, that's actually a good idea. Some an unpronounceable. I'm going to call it the. The is suggesting associate coordinates. Seems a little bit
Coordinate thread.
more. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, you think of it as a map index, but in the general case, I think it's closer to map thread.
Yeah, but I think the thread would suggest you're reducing something because it's really spraying coordinates into the thing.
Right, which is, I mean, like map thread has an inherent outer-like operation in it.
I know, but coordinate thread, you'd never guess what that did. I mean, attach coordinates, you will guess what it did. It's not the world's most elegant name, but at least you would guess what it does. Okay, let's go with attached coordinates for now. I don't really like it. I think we can do better. Now let's loop back. Okay, so downsample, we agreed that that second argument will do it. Carl on our live stream is suggesting doing more with missing data method. I agree. I don't think we've inventoried very carefully what functions support that. And I don't know whose responsibility that is. It's somewhere in between. I mean, like missing data method could be something for graphics as well, couldn't it?
I mean, Viz certainly, but like capital G graphics.
No. Visualization. I mean, are you supporting missing data method in visualization or not?
I think we have a pull request that's going to add it as a method option for some of the financial Viz.
What do you mean a method option? You mean? Oh, I see. But missing data method should be. It's not a method option. It's an actual option.
Yes.
Okay. That sounds good, but I think we should look at it. It's a good idea. We should do a little study of where we could possibly use that.
Right, and I think in general it fits in with something Roger and I want to do post 12.1, which is sort of a general reinventory of a bunch of the data processing side of things. So the downsampling and interpolation and.
Fine. I think in general, look, the calculus of missings needs to be improved. Missing minus missing, all those kinds of things, right? And maybe we can get a separate discussion about. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't mind adding that. If Devin, could you tell Sushma to add that to the main project list?
Yeah, sure.
Freestyle bullet is suggesting link coordinate. Yeah, the problem with link is that it has too much of a hyperlinky sense in the modern world, I think. Okay, I want to comment on something that Bob has brought up on the live stream, which is the actual appearance of data objects. I am also not wild about this. He says it's a bit heavy, and I kind of agree with him.
We had designed to an initial pass on lightening some of it up. We can perhaps
Let's look at that again.
Specifically.
Yeah, can we look at that again?
Yeah.
I think it should be lighter. I think it's. I agree.
We're going to debold the face, and the initial version is a little grayer than I think we want necessarily.
Let's not go grayer. I mean, it's already as gray as it could possibly be, in my opinion. Right. It makes it look overcast every day.
Perhaps we don't need the icon.
I agree. I think we probably don't need the icon, especially when we're saying day, and especially when everybody can tell that it's kind of a datey type thing. I mean, I think that icon is cute but unnecessary.
For days, yeah. For something like a year, I guess, yeah. If we have the year prefix, it's not
then
Yes,
it's really
yeah.
very clear. I mean, then it's it's very entity-like at that point. I mean,
Right.
entities don't have an icon.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think we should lose this icon. I think the icon was cute, but is just messy.
Okay, I'll check with Heidi and we'll get some preliminary designs thrown together and we'll talk about them next
Fine.
week, if not sooner.
Fine. Okay, let's keep going here. Bob is asking whether missing can have a nice icon instead of words. You know, the problem with that is we do that in dataset. Missing is just a dash. I don't think you can tell why something is missing and whether it's a warning sign or not. And I would prefer not to overly warn. Okay. Let's look at dataset.
I'm needed for the rest of this. You need me?
Probably not. I just want to make a comment. Do we have Chris Carlson? Yeah, we do. Oh, yeah, actually, I've got one thing for Brett. I got to get it off my chest here. What on earth has happened with the padding for graphics row?
So I started working on that last week on going through the various cases you've reported over the past couple of months. And I started working on it last week, worked on it some more this morning. In general, there's going to be cases that are going to be hard.
Okay, look, the cases I'm seeing are just loony. What?
Well, so the thing that it runs into, and that makes it hard, is that graphics row is a graphic. It's resizable, but the elements within it don't scale uniformly. Right. So if you have labels or ticks or whatever,
yes,
then the aspect ratio at different sizes is different.
Yes.
And so how to position them using inset is a matter of trade-offs.
I don't get that. Look, why is there ever a giant empty space? It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, we're talking in things like graphics grid, graphics column, etc. There should never be a giant empty space. Why is there ever empty space? I don't get it.
Because it's creating a table of insets, essentially.
Okay.
And so each of those insets has a width and a height that has to contain the graphic.
Yep.
If the size of the graphic changes, you grab your graphics row and drag it smaller or larger. The contents are no longer what the original aspect ratio was.
That's not good enough. I mean, then we've got to be able to change the insets parameters. If you drag it, that's not going to work. You'll never make that work. That will always fail, because if you make it small enough, all that's left is the grin of the of the font characters, basically.
Correct.
Right. So it will never work. So this scheme can never work. So you've got to have a different scheme, right? And the different scheme should be that the inset changes its width and height to correspond to the actual width and height at that size.
Yes.
No other scheme can work.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Now, did you change something? Because it's much more broken now than it was in previous versions.
So what changed in V12 was...
it's really broken, so you've really got to fix it. And there will be no compromise here. We're not having a bunch of empty space just because you can't figure out how to get the inset to be dynamic. Okay? Not negotiable. If you need me to go try and figure out how to write this code, I will. But this cannot be this way. It's unusable and it's really ugly.
I mean, right. So there are things that can be changed easily to improve things.
Have you done that? Can I see the result?
That's what I'm working on right now.
Okay. But I'm going to tell you, it will never work to have the size of the inset be fixed for all container sizes. So if that's your plan, it will never work.
That is not. That is what it has done since version 6. And I'm not, completely rewriting it, to dynamic right now. But I agree that, there's two approaches that I can see that can work. One is that it becomes a dynamic thing that looks at, that realizes when it's been resized, and does appropriate recalculations, at that point.
Who is doing the recalculation? Is it happening in the front end or is it happening somewhere else? It should be happening in the front end. If it isn't happening in the front end, it's wrong.
Right. I mean, so it's asking the front end for sizes of things.
What is it? The time at evaluation time or at rendering time?
At evaluation time.
That's wrong. That's wrong. That can never work. For the reason you just explained, it can never work.
Right.
So, I mean, what needs to happen is, just like the box system basically gives you, and I thought that's what Graphics Box does, is to give you a mechanism. I mean, maybe Chris Carlson is on this call, yes?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, do you understand what we're talking about?
Generally, I don't have a specific example.
Okay, Brett, send an example. And Chris, you wrote inset with unbelievable effort. So maybe
a long time ago, yeah. Been a long time since I had to look at that code.
Fair enough. But okay, can you send an example, Brett?
Yeah, I'm looking for one of the ones I was looking at earlier.
I could probably make an example.
It's coming in Zoom chat.
Okay. Oh, great. That's not going to work. Zoom chat doesn't work for this. We should be using our own chat system here.
Well, let's see.
No, it just simply doesn't paste. You have to send it an email.
Okay, I'll do that then.
I don't know why it doesn't paste. It's really weird. Some security measure, perhaps.
I copied and pasted.
Well, I don't know what's going on. Copy.
Okay, so I'm resizing that.
Oh, now it worked. That's so frigging weird. Okay, well, anyway, doesn't matter. Okay, look at this. What is that nonsense there? What is that giant space?
So if you select one of those histograms.
Okay, what is this? Well, look at this. Look at this. That's completely crazy.
Yes. If you select one of
Bonkers.
those histograms.
Yes. It's got way too much space around it. Why?
Because it created an object that has the same aspect ratio as the plot.
That's wrong.
Agreed.
It's wrong. It's just wrong. Why did it do that? That's a recent thing.
No, that is not a recent thing.
Oh God, we've just got to get this right. This has been a mess for years. Just got to get this right. And the way to get it right is this should be happening in the front end. This should not be happening. This, this should be what I sort of thought I understood, that Chris, inset turns into what in the box world?
Inset box.
Okay. So how would you you've got two insets within this graphic, within this outer graphic. How would you code that box-wise?
I don't, I mean, it's just graphics box of inset box and inset box.
No, I understand that, but you understand the problem here, that the inset can't predefine its size, right?
Right. You want a dynamic size.
Well, we need a
Inset.
size which is what it takes to yeah, this is so broken. This is really embarrassing, Brett. It's really how did this happen? How did you break this for version 12? Why was this not picked up by QA?
Evaluate that in version 11, which I haven't done recently, so I don't remember.
I don't know
what
where
it looks like.
That's not easy for me to do.
Okay, then I will do it and send a screenshot.
Okay.
Or I can share.
Either way, look, you know what, Brett? This has to be fixed. If you need me to help figure out how to do it, please set up a meeting and let's work on that. But it needs to get fixed and not hacked, actually fixed. Make sense? I mean, maybe for right now you can hack a solution, but I would prefer.
I mean, so and that's my plan. Is I'm going to improve things, but I mean, ultimately, it does need to be something that is doing reflowing on the fly.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
just a
correct.
second.
Yep.
Next email coming.
Okay.
Oh, come on.
Nicola is commenting on the live stream in addition to saying that graphics row is unusable, which is disappointing, but that he prefers she, I'm not sure, they prefer the script form of dates. What is the script form? What do you mean by script form? You mean we don't have a oh, there is. What does that mean? What does that mean? We don't even have that. I don't know what that's in a box, right? That's the who knows boxery? That's the I see what it is. If I say 2 to the power today, no, it just does that. So I don't understand that. Maybe it's oh, I see what if I did subscript 2, today. No, it still does the same weird thing. Okay. All right. Oh, I see the output on the terminal. Yeah. I don't even know what it does in the. Let's see, what is output?
It's
form?
just output form, so it's just showing the full form right now.
Oh, that's pretty grim. That it puts the Gregorian in there, even though that's the default. Why does it do that?
I mean, it does it explicitly because you can change the default calendar with the option value after the fact, and once you've generated.
With what option value?
If you set options of data object and say calendar type goes to Julian, then it will use Julian by default, and we don't want to change.
Come on, when was it? When did Pope Gregory do this? 1580 or something?
Yeah, I mean the adoption.
I think it's over.
But as a principle, we don't want that we need the data objects to be specific, and unless you're looking at the output form or the full form, you don't see this. We could elide it if we need to, but we want them to be fully specified, and the calendar is part of that specification. And it's generally bad protocol if changing an option value default suddenly breaks all the objects.
Let me think about that claim. Do we believe that claim? Is that true in other cases? I mean, the fact is this is extremely unlikely to fail, because
right,
if it's to set the default to something other than Gregorian.
I think the fundamental fact here is that we are planning to fold all types of dates into date object. And so this calendar could be absolute time, for example, and then the first argument will be just a number and things like that. So in the future, these arguments.
Actually, I'm sorry. I'm gonna complain about something else. This is output form. You don't have to put everything in output form.
Right. Output form doesn't have any special treatment, but we could.
I think we should. Let's elide. I mean, I don't have an objection to input form.
Mm-hmm.
I think we should elide the Gregorian part.
Should we just elide after the granularity?
I would.
Okay. Yeah.
I
we
mean,
can-
I would say as long as it is Gregorian or something.
Yes, that's right. If it isn't Gregorian, if it's some weird,
Well, I mean,
French
you could set it to
Revolutionary
like the Jewish calendar, right? Or
Yeah.
you know,
Sure.
something that's still in
the
use
French
in modern
Revolution
days.
calendar. No, that's not probably in use. The French Revolutionary calendar, unless they brought it back at some point.
Yeah, or world calendar, one of the other esoteric ones that gets used in some places. But so I'm poking design anyway.
That's what somebody should do in the world of strange forms of unrest, is try and bring back some revolutionary calendar. Never mind. Never mind.
It's
Sorry.
probably more disruptive than the odd choices for time zone offsets that people do sometimes just to mess with everyone.
Yes. Yes. Right.
If we elide the calendar, what do we do with the time zone? Because time zone is needed to be specific.
I understand. Well, it's not needed in this case because it's a day. Right?
Yes.
I think you should look a little bit more carefully at output form of data objects. I think I understand that point. We should invent an output form for it. I'm not sure what it should be. I mean, what we do in the case of if we do a now there, right, it says GMT -4. Right. So that's the type of thing we should do for the output form, presumably.
Yeah, I'll kick around some ideas with Heidi and see about getting something more textual that's less verbose for output form.
Fine. You know, Bob on the live stream is suggesting things like eliding the day thing and using color coding. Color coding will not work. I unless I'm using myself as a guinea pig. I have had color coding in my email archive search system and I have like 3 different colors or something, and I've had it for like 20 years, and I still can't remember which color is which. And I use it many times every day. So I sort of vaguely know these colors are different, but it's very hard for me to remember which one is which. And people generally don't, except for the stop go, the colors that have big cultural sort of resonance. I don't think, since if there was a color of the day or something that was, the standard thing that people use to represent day versus week versus whatever, there might be a color way to do this, but I don't think that there is. All right, let's look back here. We're I think Shadi wanted to leave here, and maybe she did. Sorry, I was just freaking out about graphics row, which I'm really
right. And did you get the email with the screenshot?
Many emails ago now. So you're telling me it was already broken in version 11?
I'm saying in version 11 it looks very similar.
Well, it was already broken. It's been horrible. I love this toolbar. I have got to start using this toolbar. We need our internal data repository. Where is our internal data repository? Functional.
I mean, so that the code for that toolbar lives in Stash. It is, anybody in the company who wants to, grab a copy of it and modify it to their system.
Is it useful for outside people, or is most of the stuff internal build numbers and things?
There's a mix. So the numbers at the front, the 11.0, 11.01 is, tailored to my file system and how I store copies of Mathematica. The smaller number to the right of it that has the actual build number is a button that copies out, M-OSX-L, blah, 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 blah.
Oh, I see. What are these?
So those resize the windows.
Why? Why? What's that for?
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't matter for you, but I have a laptop and a external monitor, and they are different resolutions, and so those buttons will change the window size.
This is sounding more specific. I was affected by the beauty of the graphic design of the thing. Okay, what does this thing do?
formats the selection so I can, paste it into like Stack Exchange or similar sorts of things to have decently looking code.
Okay, so it does sound to me like there's an interesting sort of function for making toolbars that would be quite useful to people. How would they then use that? How would they then attach, if they have a make your own toolbar kind of thing, how would they then create new notebooks? That I guess that's coming in this what are we calling them? The notebook stem cell thing. What is that called? The thing where not called template notebooks, it's called something else, where you can have a notebook that has a predefined starting state. Anyway, okay, irrelevant. Okay, let's go back over here. We really are out of time, unfortunately. So we're not going to get to dataset, although I wanted to just look at a couple of comments on the live stream. Carl says, I think the display should show the different levels. Right now, group by display exactly the same, even though there's a second level. That is probably a mistake. I agree. Should the order of the key headers. I see. I understand that. I mean, Chris, do you understand what's being said there? I think that's a good comment. Hello, Chris.
Can you send me the comment?
Yeah, but I can show you the comment. I mean,
okay.
Oh, there it is, and somebody sent it here. I mean, I think what we're talking about here is if I do an array, I don't know what, plus 333, and then I data setify that.
Right. We talked about using different weights of frames to show nested levels.
Weights of frames or something? How do I go?
Graphical weight, thickness, or darkness. So the top level grouping is the most prominent, and then it gets weaker as you go in.
Well, I think there's two different issues here. I mean, this thing is a two-dimensional presentation of this three-dimensional object. I'm talking about when you have dived in, and I don't know how I get to do that here. Do I get to do that by doing this? Okay, so I go in there. Oh, and I am seeing something there. So I don't understand this comment now. I am seeing in the breadcrumbs, I'm seeing what level I'm at. But if I do a group by, so I'm confused by this. I mean, is there some situation in which you don't see the breadcrumbs or something? Okay, we need to understand this. I'm just looking at this for a second here. I'm seeing a list level that can be, okay, so we discussed this, we started discussing this last time.
Yes, at the end of the meeting, like today. So yes, so the idea here is some notion of level that is aware of the heads it's looking at.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not keen on the name list level, but I understand the concept. I mean, I could imagine a level thing. Oh, Carl is saying it's not the breadcrumbs, it's when you have a data set with multiple layers of keys. Chris, do you understand this? Okay, go off and understand it.
Yeah, I'll have a closer look at it.
Okay, I mean, in this case here, it's kind of crazy, I suppose, but one could imagine something. No, this is crazy. That's crazy. It's crazy because really what it is, the problem is that this is a decorator, and something like list level makes it seem like it's the function on the outside. You see what I'm saying?
Not really.
Well, what I'm saying is that it makes it seem like it is a function that does something, list level, like
Oh, I
level of
see.
list. Whereas what you actually mean is just a decorator
Mhm.
that decorates the -1 and qualifies it.
Right.
So I think if we had the right name for this, I think it could be a fine thing. And I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of functions that could use this. I mean, the fact that we, because we have a pure -1 there, we're not decorating it to say it's a level. And maybe we don't need the word level in the thing. And I don't know whether I'm just lists only. I mean, it's kind of it's a decorator like up to.
Right.
It seems a bit like an allowed heads.
It is an allowed heads thing, but it's an allowed head decorator. I mean, allowed heads is an option. This is a decorator for the level spec. But would it work with positive levels as well? What would it mean for positive levels?
Well, it would be a restriction.
Yeah.
In the sense
that it would fail if it was. But I mean, in a sense, what we're talking about here is a level spec that is what we want. Okay, negative levels, a brilliant invention of a chap who worked on SMP long, long ago. What we want is actually not negative levels. What we want is to say that the level should be, -1 means above the atoms, at the level of the atoms, right? -2 is one level above the atoms. What we instead want is something I would have thought which specifies that level as a thing that is a list of with a certain array depth, right? In other words, we want to say operate on the things at a certain array depth. Because we can imagine a range of levels, let's say level 3 through the things at array depth, whatever it is.
But that's a positive level.
I'm saying it's a positive level. I'm saying that this is, because right now you can say level 3 through level -2 if you want to. What I'm saying is that I claim that the right way to have this symbolic level specification is to say it's a level specification that is okay. So what I'm suggesting is, let's see. I mean, this is a bad name, but this is a stupid name. Okay, but I mean, something like that. So what we're saying is that's the specification of the level. So we're saying map F onto expa where the thing that it maps onto is arrays of depth 2. See what I'm saying?
So it's look for the matrices whose elements are not arrays, and then map those.
That is correct, which is what I think you mean by list level -2.
Yes, indeed.
Right? But I think this is a clearer way to think about it. I mean, I don't have a good name, but I think this is a clearer way to think about it, that this is a mapping onto, just like you'd say, and by the way, this would be a map. I mean, we'd have to decide whether this or this is what's relevant.
I don't think that helps in the case that prompted this, which is I want to map to the elements of a data set, and the data set leaves may be in any kind of type. You don't know
Well,
what
how
the
did
type.
this help?
You don't know what the type is.
Okay, how did this help? Well, I don't understand what this is doing then.
So Chris would be working with the case of 0, the things that are not arrays anymore.
I think what I want is I want to be able to say only count associations and lists in your level count.
But anything above that isn't that is going to mess up the structure. Anything below that isn't that you want to treat as an atom, basically. That's what you're saying.
Well, within a data set, you're not going to have anything above that's not a list or an association.
Sure.
But when you run out of list and association, you know you've reached a data set atom. And that's what I want to map onto.
I understand. I mean, so what you want to do, so you're saying you want to specifically map onto dataset atoms, or you want to map a level above the dataset atoms, right?
Well, I want to map to the atoms.
No, you might want to map one level above them. You might want to map, look, the atoms might contain an association or something.
Yes, so Chris needs only the case -1, or in this notation it would be 0. And we are discussing the more general situation.
Okay, let's. I need to go, unfortunately. We've got comments here. That's must be 12.1 there. Was that 12.1? Or is that a horrible piece of breakage? I mean, it's a horrible, there we go. Okay. Now, can't tell which level is which gray header in the dataset output. I see. This one here, for example. Why not? Wait a minute. That's all moons, all mass. I'm confused. So here, there's a footer that's telling us what is the depth. Suggestion from Nicola here. What? I don't understand that piece of code. Map number Q. Something's wrong with that piece of code. Map number Q onto this.
That slot ampersand is slot of 1.
Oh,
so
I see this piece of lunacy, right? There's a piece of lunacy from going to level -1. This is what you don't want to have happen. You simply want to map over the arrays of depth, something or other. Right? This is going very, very, very structurally at level -1.
Right, exactly. It doesn't distinguish lists from anything else.
This is I see. Nicola is pointing out that the level of the atom is rather meaningless. Yes, in this case it is. Level -1. For some historical context, this was invented in 1979 or 1980, this idea and it had a very, it's very useful for doing structural kinds of things, but it's not useful for these more semantic things. I agree. Carl was saying he didn't know the footer was there. Well, that's an issue. Yes. That's okay. Dataset education problem. Let's see. Buffer keyed column. Right. Okay. We should probably wrap up here. So many more interesting things to discuss. If we have a chance for an additional ILD meeting, I think we've got a bit of a backlog here of stuff to discuss. Do you agree? Or did we? I mean, some of these are partly resolved. I think we talked about them last time.
Yes, indeed.
All right, I should go. Oh my gosh, I've got 1 minute to do a meeting that was supposed to take 30 minutes. I need to go. Thanks, guys. Thanks to folks on the live stream. See you all soon.